Hi, I'm Melanie Barr. Welcome to the She Built It Experience with Melanie. You're here because you want to experience the life and business that you crave. Join me as I talk to women who have successfully built it, a career and business that they love. We dive into the topic of how they built it and talk about everything from having the courage to make career leaps to the details of how to lead effectively, create successful teams, implement strategies for growth, and infuse tech innovation. Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. So let's dive in. Deb Smith is the co-founder and CEO of the CenterCap Group, the only female-founded boutique investment bank solely focused on real estate. She is responsible for the firm's business operations and activities and heads the firm's strategic consulting and M&A execution practices. The principals of CCG have over $400 billion in transactions throughout their career in both public and private markets. Thank you for joining us today, Deb. You are the co-founder and CEO of the CenterCap Group. We cannot wait to learn more. But first, tell us more about who you are and your early career path.
Thanks for having me. It's great to meet you. I grew up in Australia on a dairy farm. I thought I was probably going to be a tax attorney at some point towards the back end of my high school, prior to meeting a fantastic teacher, my economics teacher, when I was in grade 11. I don't think I ever contemplated even going to college. It was just not something that dairy farming children did. And so I'm the one of my many first cousins and my family to go to college. And I think it was certainly different than what anybody else in my family had contemplated. So it was a long list of firsts that have gone on since then. I ended up going into an investment banking out of college, and it was the only bank that I had put in for. And I was very fortunate to get a job with Morgan Stanley in Australia. And then I was transferred over to the United States. And I've been here ever since. I was a loner from the Australian office, and I stayed, and I love it. I think I'm one of few people outside of my two business partners that is still doing what we did when we finished college. We're all investment bankers, and we all still do investment banking. And it's probably more fun now that I've been doing it for 25 years than when I first started. And I didn't know a lot. And for people who are looking into a career in finance, and it seems really scary, and in some ways it is. But once you get into it, if you like to learn, you like to be challenged, it's amazing. And I did that for many years before I branched out with my current business partners now, and we now have our own firm. So that's what got us where we are today.
Do you think that growing up on a dairy farm taught you business? And it's interesting because I had a previous guest last week. She is helping tobacco farmers change to more organic and sustainable food. And so she hopes that we can introduce farming as a more viable career. I'm curious if it taught you some business lessons before you made the leap to college in the US.
Yeah, it's a good question. I look back, and as a dairy farming child, everyone has a job from very early on, which is different than the concept of today, grades and GPAs and college scores. And where I grew up, nobody cared about any of that stuff. I mean, up until I went off to college, I got out of bed at 5 a.m. every morning. I raised all the calves on our farms, and I was responsible, and I had a job, and I'd come home from school and it'd be the same thing. I had to lift hay bales and drive tractors. My first vehicle I drove was a tractor, and a stick shift, no less. But from a very early age, we and all of my siblings, we were raised to do multiple things at the same time. And so we didn't have the convenience to just do one thing. We grew all of our own food. And so we did live off the land quite a bit. And I guess I look back, there is a skill to that. So while some others may have been focusing on grades, I was focused on working. And I did that all the way through high school. I had to work. And then when I went to college, I maintained 3 jobs at a time to put myself through college. And I don't think I ever thought it would be any different. The other thing is we have to complete everything we start. You don't get the luxury of doing half a job. You have to do the whole job or no job, and you have responsibilities. And so you learn very early that this has to be done, and this is your job, and what you have to get all this stuff done before you go to school. And that's the way it is. And so when you're raised with a very hands-on mentality, I do think it impacts the way you look at things. And I think those combinations of things together now, I have kids, I'm married, I sit on boards, I do volunteer work, I'm involved in the kids' schools, and yet I have two wonderful business partners and we run an investment bank. I don't spend a whole lot of time saying, is that normal? It just is. It's just the way our life is.
And do you think that work ethic gave you a sense of confidence?
I think I just don't think about it. I just do it. And so I don't spend a lot of time wondering if I can or can't do it. I just do it. And so once I have something in front of me, even if it's something new, there is no concept that I cannot or can't achieve something. It's more a concept, well, what do I need to do to get this done? And similarly, when we started up the firm and through my entire career, I've never stood back and thought, well, am I good enough? Am I qualified enough? I just don't think in terms of those metrics. I just think, well, this is what I want to do. So how am I going to do that? That's the story of my life. How am I going to do that? And so I'm constantly thinking what I need to do to get from A to B. And I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about whether I should even be in B in the first place. And I think with that mentality, it's contagious because, and maybe that's a confidence that I don't appreciate, but I think when you take that perspective, others around you will go with you, right? If you don't give them an in or to think it's any different, then I tend to find people will move along in the direction you're going.
And I'm sure when you get to B, it feels good because you have used that curiosity to figure out how to do it and accomplish what you set out to do.
Yeah, regardless of the task, I take enormous enjoyment in completing it. And whether it's cleaning my kitchen or washing a floor or getting the kids ready for school, or whether it's completing a huge deal, or I do a lot of writing, I publish a lot of articles, it doesn't matter what it is. I take enormous enjoyment and pride in a job well done. And so it's the continual inspiration. I think that's what ends up tying in with wanting to get from A to B is I just focus on the B and what do I need to do to get a job well done? Timing, a little luck, some smarts has helped me figure out how to navigate through life to get to where I am.
The CenterCap Group is a boutique investment bank providing strategic advisory, capital raising, and consulting related services to private and public sector companies and has been involved in more than $400 billion of M&A and capital market transactions. Share with us more about what you do and what you like the most about it.
CCG, which we call it, CCG, we are all things real estate, which I think is our mantra, and we tend to hold on to it pretty tightly. We have not gone off focus on the real estate industry since we started the firm. And so we've held to be an industry expert around either doing corporate M&A, which is strategic advice to whether it's REITs, operating companies, investment managers, on helping them think how to grow. So if you say, well, I want to buy something, or I want to solve a succession planning issue, or I'm trying to figure out what my investors think about me, or how do I go about capital raising? Those kind of questions we deal with, and then we can follow through on the transaction. We also have a capital raising business that raises capital for mainly for one-off deals, some programmatic vehicles. So if you want to acquire a portfolio of properties or truck stops or office buildings or senior housing, we help find capital for those. And then we have a consulting business. It's strategic advice. And so it is really focused on either repositioning companies. It's helping you get public company readiness. We do fairness opinions, valuation advice out of that business line. And each one of those business lines, we have grown at different times depending on where the market is. So when we started the firm in 2009, it was much more capital raising because that's where the market was. But over time, that's rotated. Now, we think we're one of the top tier advisors to the investment management space in the real estate sector. And so we do a lot of buying and selling of investment managers, advising on those transactions as well as consulting with them. And so together, and then the consulting business, we've built that out over the past few years. In response to a need, we realized that there were a lot of managers in our space who just needed strategic advice. There was no deal involved. Growing up as an M&A banker, it's, if you're not a buyer, you're a seller. But there is actually a segment of the market that is neither one of those things. So we do consulting as that third element, and we've really grown out that business, which helps balance out some of the mix. And that business I tend to run myself. I love it. It is so much fun going in and meeting new companies, dissecting them, figuring out what makes them great, and then how to grow them and to give them some recommendations and advice. It is a lot of fun. I love to do it because no two companies are the same. And it's actually really interesting how many companies we meet that don't know their own strengths from an investor standpoint. If you were looking in, or we've come up with a list of things that are just different and they just don't even think about. It makes a lot of fun. So that's the part I absolutely love to do that.
That's true, because sometimes when you're in the everyday life, you don't see those strengths. And sometimes someone from an outside perspective can see things that maybe you don't.
Yeah, and I think that's right. We've been exposed to hundreds of managers over time, and no two are the same. But it often astounds me that when I can look at someone's deck and how they position themselves, I'm like, these guys are incredible investors. They've made a lot of money. And yet this deck, it needs work. It needs a lot of work. That is the fun part. And for us, the challenge always is how can I make this company look special? So it doesn't look like the other 50 companies I've worked with. How do I create a whole new marketing pitch, a whole new strategy? How can I position them to raise, like, for example, capital to buy multifamily properties? How can I make them look different than the next guy who does that? There's hundreds and hundreds of managers that do it. So, and that is part of the whole experience that I guess you get when you've been doing it for a long time, is that you can borrow ideas and then ideas build and build and build till you come up, the end product looks nothing like, the foundational pieces that you originally were thinking about when you got started down in the process. That's the fun part.
And that's such a fun way of looking at it. You have been named an industry trendsetter who provides solutions to clients in overlooked sectors like cold storage and logistics that have become a huge success since COVID. Share with us more about this and how you saw the advantage for the overlooked sectors.
We publish CCG perspectives, and that's usually driven by a trend or something we've seen in the market or something we see coming down the pike in the future. Sometimes we're ahead of ourselves and the market's just not there yet, but it eventually gets there. Even before I just chat about logistics and cold storage, the multifamily space, I remember 10 years ago when we were first talking about amenitized apartments and people having smaller footprints for an apartment, and that people don't want huge apartments. They will trade a smaller space if they can get pool rooms and pools and bike racks and car spaces and all these other amenities along with their property. And that concept was new. And as a result, we really struggled to get people to buy into it as an idea. And now that's the standard. That's how apartments are built today. And so the world has moved along in that regard. And on that too is, I think, the next trend coming out, and I will probably be writing about it relatively soon, so you're hearing it first, is on the senior living space. We have a massive housing shortage for seniors. There's probably going to be 85 million seniors coming in the next 10, 20 years, and we need to house them. People have always focused on affordable housing, and that is very well covered. I think the really cool part of it is to look at active adult living, which is almost like retirement type villages. They don't want to own their own house, but they want to do more than just play pickleball too. And so thinking around that product, I think, is really cool, and is something that's coming, and we're now starting to see a lot more people talking about it. And it'll be interesting to see where that goes, but it's something that I know I'm excited about, to see that segment of the market. And then just coming back to your first one, logistics and cold storage. Once COVID come online, it's really pushed e-commerce. And I've written about this many times. E-commerce and getting exposure to the internet, it's people did online shopping sporadically. What happened with COVID is it institutionalized, everybody does it. And whether you're doing curbside pickup or whether you were an online shopper and now you do a lot more, I think the reality is the consumer of today is focused on convenience. Number one thing, convenience. Now, if I tell you that it's convenient, whether you do curbside or whether you get delivery, it's like, how do I get it to you? UPS had done a survey not long ago where something like 65% of online shoppers who order before lunchtime expect it the same day. And it's like 75% expect it the next day if they order the day before. These stats are crazy. Think through the logistics of getting something to you that is made in Oregon, right? How does that stuff get to you in such a short period of time? And I think the logistics around solving big warehouses, those concepts are fine, But we need to redefine how industrial works, office works, logistics works, all of these things works in response to that. People will return to stores, right? I don't think people are going to give up their convenience now they've got it. They're just not going to do it. And so then the question is, well, how am I going to get you what you want? And so I think the concept of last mile logistics is now important, which is instead of dealing with the big Amazon warehouse in the middle of nowhere and then carting it to a regional distribution, now we're talking about converting maybe car parks, back of stores, dark shopping centers, turning them into logistics hub that are last mile and using those spaces to store product to get it to you when you want it same day or when you want it next day. And there's a logistics challenge in that, but that will redefine how the entire industrial market works. Now, of course, what plays into that is cold storage, because we don't have enough of it. We're woefully insufficient in the United States. But if you want your blueberries delivered to you, how are you going to get your blueberries? And so it's not only that, it's pharmaceuticals, it's biotech drugs. All these things require cold storage. And people's focus, where you were talking before about farming and people wanting fresh food, but they want it, even if you're ordering online, I still want it. And so you expect the expectations around that have dramatically changed as a result through COVID, that I think some of these trends are not going backwards. And then how you solve for that. And then the technology obviously comes in, because if you have a last mile dark shopping center that's filling orders for blueberries, how do you know whose blueberries belong to who? Just the technology and the logistics to around these things for millions of products. It's how you deal with that. There's an evolution that is going to roll through our industry. And that issue of convenience is going to hit every single segment.
So true. So much goes into it. Such a complex problem to figure out. And I'm smiling because I am one of those people. If I order before noon, I'd like it to show up same day. Even going to Walgreens or CVS, you can now get those things delivered. So
of course.
The other day I thought, should I just pop out and do it? But
no, I do it.
We really are going in that direction where we want everything delivered if it's possible. So you're so right.
And I absolutely do it. I order from Walgreens, from Target, from every store. I order at my fingertips, and I've gotten really bad. It could just be one thing. And I just don't have time.
I'm smiling because I have the same thoughts. And I know a lot of our listeners who are working and juggling very busy lifestyles are nodding their heads.
Think about that next time you get something delivered, what it took to get it to you, and the amount of people and the amount of real estate and logistical footwork that took for you to get that product when you just click a button.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable what this country's been able to achieve in adjusting to these things. And we've got some ways to go, and the industry is still evolving. But one thing I'll say about real estate, chaos is great for real estate markets if it's not credit driven, if it's not lending driven, because it just means opportunity. When there's chaos, there are winners and losers. And real estate people, we think we're all smart enough to figure out where the opportunities are. When you have change like this, the real estate investors love it, because now we've got the whole industry of the industrial real estate sector is going through so much change. It just means there's enormous opportunity to make something happen in it. And you can go through every one of the sectors and you'll get a similar answer where there's investors there who are willing to take risk and take a bet on themselves, that they know what to do and they will figure it out. And that's how the industry keeps going round and round and round.
So exciting. With all of the transactions that you have facilitated, you have experienced incredible success. Share with us one of your favorite client or customer success stories.
I'll put a few in the same category. We have been very fortunate as a firm that a lot of our business has either been repeat clients or referrals. We take a lot of pride in that we feel that we're a banking train people can trust, and that we get really involved with our clients. We know a lot about them and we talk to them an awful lot. And so some of our clients we've had almost as long as we've been in business. And the really great thing about it is we've had clients where we started off with one tiny capital raise, just for a little property. They went on to go into a bigger capital raise. They went on to go into multiple capital raises. Then it went on to selling the company through finding a strategic partner, and we've round tripped them. And so now some of those clients are like, well, what are we going to do next? We need to go buy something else. And when you've worked with the same client for 10 years, It is so great because their relationship is so strong and it's really built on trust. And you can have a very open dialogue with them. You get to be candid. It's one of the benefits of long-term clients. And the crazy thing is, we have a lot of those clients. We have a few of them. And those clients go on and refer other clients to us. And so it goes round and round. And that's part of the fun, I think, of what we end up doing is we have amazing clients who've been with us for a really long time. And this business is very competitive.
And that's great for the clients too, because then you know their personalities, you start to know their wants, and it's much easier for the client too.
Yeah, I think that's right. The clients know different people across the firm, and my partners and I are very, very different. As people, we bring different strengths to the table. And what's really great is our clients get to see, depending on what they're looking for, they have access to the three of us and get something different depending on who it is. And the beautiful thing about it is, unlike what I think had other firms that are transaction oriented, yes, but they also tend to be focused on themselves. It's eat what you kill. And the three of us is all for one and one for all. So I do well if my cornerstones are doing well. And if they're not doing well, then I don't do well either. And so it's all for one.
You raised kids and credit your success to having a supportive partner at home and, as you just mentioned, supportive partners in business. For anyone with a busy lifestyle and as a mother of young twins, I know firsthand how difficult it can be navigating it all. Share with us how you were able to continue your growth and make it work.
Yeah, good question. Someone said something to me very early in my career, and it has stuck with me, although I didn't appreciate it at the time because I was neither married nor did I have any children. And in a quiet moment, it was actually another woman too, had said to me, you know what, Deb, as you go on in your career, don't ever second guess the decisions you make. Don't do it. Once you make a decision, you move on. If you don't, it will eat you alive. And given the volume, and for any woman who's a busy mom and have kids, I offer the same advice. We have great women's intuition. Go with it, right? Don't second guess it. If what your first reaction is to do something, you just go ahead and you do it. And if something goes sideways, you'll figure it out. Trust yourself, you'll figure it out. Why? You don't have time. I do not have the time to keep making the same decisions over and over again. If you actually ask any of my children, I have 4. If you ask any of my kids, they will tell you mom's most common words are, didn't we already talk about this? Why are we still talking about this? Didn't we already make a decision? The decision was made. I really do believe that because the amount of things that come across my schedule in a day from all the different, factions that I have to deal with, I don't have the time. So give me the facts, I will make a decision and I move on. And that's how I live my life. And I think it's good advice for anyone, not only as a woman, but anyone who's got a lot of stuff going on. It's great advice. And not only that, you'll be infinitely much more happier because if you don't second guess your decisions, you give yourself an out.
So true.
You're right. You deserve to be happy. Don't second guess it. Assume you're right. And you know what? If something goes sideways in the future, okay, you'll figure it out. I hold that very firmly. And I think it saved my bacon more times than I care to think, right? Because otherwise I couldn't get through my volume in a day. There's no way.
It's so true because every time I don't trust my intuition, I regret it.
Women really do have great judgment. And I don't want to get too much on a gender point, but I think women have really great judgment. And we do ourselves a disservice by not trusting it enough. We have a tendency to second guess, and you don't need to do that. Trust your gut instinct. It's usually right. And if it's not, you're good enough and you're smart enough, you will figure it out because that's what we do, right? We just figure stuff out. And I think, we more of us need to go with that. And I can say my partners are the same as me. And that's how, because we all have kids, and that's how we get through our regular days, is just being very deliberate, but making judgment calls and sticking to them and believing that it's the right course of action to take.
Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. I love to ask this at the end of every episode because I believe joy is so important to bring into our daily lives. What is one way that you make sure to find and live your joy?
So from a personal perspective, it comes with that never look back thing, is when we have wins, we should enjoy them. Even if you've moved the goalposts, right? I just had a conversation with my daughter a week or so ago who'd finally achieved all of her goals as a swimmer. And I said to her, look, this is great. You've achieved your goal. She goes, no, it's not, Mum, because I didn't achieve this other goal. I said, that didn't exist last week. She goes, well, I already set new ones. I said, you can set new goals and you can set them high, but you got to cut yourself some slack if you don't reach them. But you always have to remember to smell the roses, right? Enjoy those little moments when you've had successes, even if they're small, right? Because, you deserve it. Everyone deserves to be happy. And so I think that's one way of doing it. But I think from a career perspective, I always say, look, find something that makes you happy. Find a passion. It doesn't matter what it is. Find a passion, work really, really hard at it, make a difference, and then you get to call whatever you're doing a career. And it really doesn't get much better than that. I wake up every day and I love what I do. And I never feel like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do today? I don't have that. I get up, I'm excited to do what I'm doing, but I have a long list. And it's like, well, how am I going to get through this list today? And I just start at the top and I plow on through. And at the end of my days, I'm like, wow, I got a lot done today. I always think that I got a lot done today. But that sense of accomplishment and enjoying the hitting of my goals that I've set gives me enormous joy. It really does, regardless of them. And I just think whatever that is, that's my passion. Whatever makes people happy, you have a right to be happy. So pursue it. You only get one shot. This 1 second, Melanie's here and it's gone and you don't get it back. And so you got to enjoy it while it's here because they're not going to last forever.
So true, because so often we accomplish something and we move on to the next thing without really feeling it. And sometimes I even say, okay, this cup of tea, even that small little moment can motivate you for the next.
Yeah, you got to enjoy it and that's a problem particularly when you're a high achiever and you're doing a lot, you have a lot going on. We have a tendency to focus on what's next. And when you're goal oriented, we all do it. And I think even if it's for a minute, say, you know what? I really did good on that. Or wow, that's really awesome. But just to enjoy it just for a minute because you've earned it, right? Because if you don't do that, you'll be perpetually unhappy and dissatisfied because you're always chasing the next goal. And by the time you get it, you've already moved the goalpost. And if you keep moving the goalpost, you can never reach it. And so as a result, you've got to take it back. And those goals are great. You should always have them. But just each little success, each little milestone, yeah, you deserve a little pat on the back because you earned it.
So true. You have experienced so much success. I have loved every minute of talking to you today. Please share with us how and where we can find you.
Sure. CenterCapGroup.com. And we're also on LinkedIn, and I'm on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect.
If you are new to She Built It, we'd love for you to join us. We offer community memberships, masterminds, innovative virtual events, and meaningful connections to entrepreneurs and corporate leaders. Please also check out our She Built It shop, curated products from women-owned businesses who put their heart and soul into their beautiful and innovative products. We offer She Built It business consulting and the She Built It blog. Thank you to everyone around the world who joined today. Thank you to my editor, Rich Streffolino. Please download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, together, let's let nothing stop us from experiencing the life that we crave.